Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you the story of Green Book, a powerful film based on real events. It's about an unexpected friendship, a road trip through the segregated South, and how two completely different men found common ground. Let's get into it. Part 1. The beginning of the journey. Green Book takes us back to the early 1960s in New York City. At the heart of the story are two men from completely different worlds, Tony Vallelonga, better known as Tony Lip, and Dr. Don Shirley, a world-class African-American pianist. Tony comes from an Italian-American family. He's a bouncer at the famous Copacabana nightclub. Rough around the edges, straightforward, not exactly well-educated, but street-smart and deep down has a big heart. When the club temporarily shuts down for renovations, Tony finds himself out of work. With a wife and kids to support, he's desperate to find a temporary job. That's when he gets an unusual offer: to meet with someone looking for a driver for a concert tour through the Deep South. That someone turns out to be Dr. Don Shirley, cultured, elegant, and highly educated, living in a luxurious apartment above Carnegie Hall. But Dr. Shirley isn't just looking for a driver. He needs someone who can also provide protection during the trip, as segregation is still very much alive in the South. Their first meeting is tense. They seem like complete opposites from the get-go. Tony doesn't know what to make of Don. The way he talks, carries himself, his whole lifestyle. It's all so different from what Tony's used to. And Don? He's strict, reserved, and doesn't appreciate casual familiarity. Still, after thinking it over, Don hires Tony, despite his rough manners and casual prejudice. There's something in Tony that Don senses might come in handy on this difficult journey ahead. And so, the tour begins. A long road trip through the American South. They bring along the Green Book, a travel guide for Black Americans that lists hotels, restaurants, and gas stations where they're actually allowed to stop during segregation. From the very start, it's clear this trip isn't going to be easy. Tony witnesses blatant, unapologetic racism like he's never seen before. And for Don, it's not just about performing. It's about enduring constant humiliation, being denied service, judged and insulted, no matter how talented or respected he may be. At first, their relationship is filled with tension, arguments, and cultural clashes. Tony can't understand why Don is so distant, why he doesn't listen to popular music, why he refuses to eat fast food, or why, when as a Black man, he doesn't seem to fit in even with other Black people. And Don sees Tony as unrefined, but he also begins to notice his loyalty, honesty, and sense of justice. Slowly but surely, a connection starts to form. At first professional, but the first seeds of mutual respect begin to take root. Part 2. Challenges on the road and a growing friendship. As the days go by, their journey becomes more intense and at times more difficult. The southern states in the 1960s weren't just geographically distant from New York. They were a completely different world, especially when it came to race. Even though Dr. Shirley was a celebrated musician, respected by many, he couldn't escape the cruel reality of the Jim Crow South. He's denied entry to restaurants, forced to use separate bathrooms, and often not even allowed to eat in the same venues where he's scheduled to perform. Tony is shocked. Coming from a rough working-class neighborhood in the Bronx, he's never seen racism in such an open and aggressive form. At first, he doesn't know how to react, but soon his instinct to protect kicks in. What begins as a job starts turning into something personal. Tony stands up for Don in public, challenges people's behavior, and even gets into fights if he has to. Meanwhile, the two men begin to understand each other on a deeper level. Long hours on the road lead to conversations, first shallow, then surprisingly honest. Tony introduces Don to the everyday things he loves: greasy fried chicken, soul music, and a more laid-back way of life. Don, in return, opens Tony's mind. He talks about loneliness, about being stuck between two worlds, not fully accepted by white society, but also never truly fitting in among Black communities because of his education, mannerisms, and lifestyle. Despite his fame, Don feels isolated. One of the turning points in their journey happens when they're pulled over by Southern police late at night. The officers are aggressive and suspicious of them, clearly uncomfortable with a Black man being chauffeured by a white man. Tony reacts angrily, trying to defend Don, but ends up making things worse. Both of them get arrested, It's a tense and humiliating experience. But back at the station, Don makes a quiet phone call to none other than Robert Kennedy, the U.S. Attorney General. Within minutes, they're released. This moment shakes Tony. For the first time, he realizes the power and influence Don actually has, and also how little that power means in a place ruled by racism and fear. After that, their bond becomes stronger. Don helps Tony write touching letters to his wife, Dolores, polishing his words, adding warmth and depth. Tony starts seeing Don not just as a passenger, but as a friend, someone he can learn from. As the trip goes on, they continue facing obstacles, both external and internal, but now they face them together. Tony becomes more thoughtful, more open, more aware. Don, in turn, softens. He starts to laugh more, let go, even join in when Tony plays loud music and sings off key. Their journey becomes less about the miles and more about the friendship they're building, one that neither of them saw coming. Part 3. Dignity, acceptance, and coming home for Christmas. As their journey nears its end, the bond between Tony and Don grows stronger, almost like family. They're still different in so many ways, different backgrounds, different values, different worldviews, but they've learned to listen to each other, to respect what makes each of them unique. The road has tested them, brought them face to face with injustice, ignorance, and even danger. But it also brought laughter, music, and quiet moments of understanding. Now they're heading to the final concert of the tour in one of the most prestigious clubs in the South, filled with wealthy white high society guests. On the surface, it's a big honor for Don and Shirley, but when they arrive, the same old story repeats itself. Don is told he's not allowed to eat in the main dining room. Club policy, they say. They offer him a meal in a back room, out of sight. Tony tries to smooth things over, to negotiate, even to offer money. But this time, Don puts his foot down. He calmly but firmly refuses. He's had enough. He won't perform for people who won't treat him with basic human dignity. And with that, they walk out. Instead of playing that night, they go somewhere else. A local black bar. It's small, full of life, laughter, music, and warmth. For the first time, Don sits down at the piano and plays not classical music, not what's expected of him, but jazz, blues, soul. The crowd cheers, musicians join in, and Don finally looks truly free. Not just as a performer, but as a person. In that moment, he connects, not just with the music, but with the people around him. It's raw, honest, and beautiful. After that, they hit the road one last time, headed back north, back home. The mood is quieter, more reflective. A snowstorm hits as they drive through the night, and Tony's exhausted. Don, for the first time, offers to drive. It's a powerful, symbolic moment. The man who was always in the back seat, now taking the wheel. They're equals now, partners. Finally, on Christmas Eve, Tony arrives home. He invites Don to come inside and celebrate the holiday with his family, but Don politely declines. He doesn't want to intrude. Tony enters his apartment, greeted with love by his wife and relatives. Loud, warm, Italian chaos. He's clearly changed. Not just tired, but different inside. More grounded, more open. Back in his apartment, Don is alone. Surrounded by elegance and silence, the loneliness is heavy. He doesn't quite belong anywhere. Not in white society, not among black communities, not even with other musicians. And then he makes a choice. He goes to Tony's house. He knocks on the door and Tony is surprised, but instantly happy. "He's my friend," Tony says to his curious, noisy family. And just like that, Don is welcomed in. It's awkward at first, sure. Different cultures, different vibes. But there's warmth, acceptance, and a seat at the table. And that's how it ends. Not with a grand speech or a dramatic twist, but with something real, connection. Green Book is a story about breaking down walls, not with force, but with patience, respect, and heart. It's about what happens when two people choose to see past the surface and meet each other where it matters most, as human beings. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Green Book isn't just a movie, it's a reminder of how important it is to look past the surface, to see not someone's skin color, background, or mannerisms, but their heart. It's a story about a friendship that could have never happened, if not for the courage and openness of two very different people. They chose not to judge, but to understand, not to push away, but to connect. In a world that so often divides us, stories like this matter. And maybe, just maybe, each of us could take a moment to sit beside someone different from us and really listen, because that's where something real begins. If this story touched you, please give it a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what movie moved you just as much. I'd love to share it next time. Take care of yourself and those around you. See you soon.